Lyre of the Lion by TheNightNinja2. Chapter 9. Rage of the Princess. Mirabel's lips were pursed as she aggressively jabbed the embroidery needle through the fabric. Her 15th birthday was totally forgotten, except by Luisa, Antonio, Mariano, and the seamstress, but she had gotten used to her birthday being forgotten. What was really making her mad was Abuela had started finding excuses for Antonio to spend more time with his quote-unquote real parents, aka Peppa and Felix. Mirabel hadn't been able to get a word in, and Alma had said it at a time Mirabel didn't have anything sharp available. "Mira, you're muttering. Can't you tell me what's wrong?" asked the seamstress. "Antonio has to spend the day with Peppa and is slowly being taken away from me so that when he gets his gift, he'll learn to be a proper madrigal," growled Mirabel. The seamstress frowned. "I swear, if they try to take my baby from me, I'll take my sword to their throats and stick my initials into their eyes with my sewing needle," muttered Mirabel, making very aggressive motions with the needle. "Don't worry, Mira. The rumours around town will stop them, and Mariana will be the first to voice against them doing anything like that. The Guzmans are almost as respected as the Madrigals," said Josefina kindly. The young girl reminded her of a mother jaguar when it came to Antonio. Granted, that could be said for almost any loving mother with her children. Mirabel just continued to mutter threats under her breath, like the time Lucy was offered a courtship by a total creep, but they had to put up with him at dinner for one night. Mirabel had played her liar aggressively under the table, and had grinned malevolently as the suitor got more and more terrified, especially when she started flourishing her meat knife around, using it to punctuate her sentences. Not even Peter dared to scold her when she was angry, because it's best to let some fires burn themselves out. "Mira, if you get any more aggressive with that needle, you're going to stab yourself," said Josefina gently. "I'm going for a walk," Mirabel sighed. "Try not to kill anyone. Blood is impossible to get out of silk," warned Josefina. Mirabel smiled a little. Aslan knew how many dresses she had ruined by being clumsy, getting drunk, and blood was easier to clean out than wine. Peppa was chasing Antonio with a thundercloud over her head. He had gotten bored staying with her in the fields and ran off to find Mirabel. A panicked Peppa started running through the town trying to find him, but he ran further the moment he saw her chasing him. It was at that moment he crashed into Mirabel. "Mama, hide me!" he cried out. Storm clouds darkened overhead and a hurricane began to blow from a distraught and angry Peppa. Mirabel held Antonio in her arms, whispering soothing words at him while glaring daggers at Peppa. Lightning flashed and Peppa suddenly became terrified of her niece and the cold fury her eyes held. Mirabel was just standing there, unfazed by the storm whipping around her, as she shielded Antonio from both it and Peppa. It didn't help that Mirabel was in her armour and fire dress, because she had archery that morning. She looked ready to kill whoever had scared Antonio. At that moment, Felix ran over and started trying to calm Peppa down. A tornado ripped through the mountain, scarring the face and tearing up at least one orchard. Without a word, Mirabel carried herself and Antonio back to Casita. Rain poured the windows as Felix managed to rein in the hurricane to a more powerful downpour with the thunder and lightning. Mirabel got both herself and Antonio into dry clothes. "Casita, please, can you lock the door?" "I don't want to be yelled at or else someone might die," said Mirabel. The house complied. Suddenly there was a frantic knocking at the door. "Who is it?" Mirabel growled. "It's Luisa." "Casita, let her in. And if Mariano comes too, he can, as well as Josefina," said Mirabel. She sat on her bed with Antonio clinging to her. "Do you want to tell me what happened?" asked Mirabel. "I was bored standing in the field, just watching it rain. So I went to go and find you. And then all of a sudden, scary storm lady starts chasing me, and the storm got worse, so I ran faster," said Antonio. Mirabel sighed. "Tia Peppa is thundering up a blue streak. I don't know if she's more panicked than Antonio went missing under her watch, or upset because he doesn't want to spend time with her." said Louisa. How many homes were wrecked in the storm? Said Mirabel. 10. I'm not going to have time for sword practice for months, said Louisa bitterly. No. People can rebuild their own homes without you. The village can come together to help without the amazing madrigals. I do need to talk to Tia and see if we can smooth this whole thing over, said Mirabel. But Abuela... Abuela can't do anything in retaliation without staining the perfect image of the family and herself. She would dare risk not being seen as perfect. Do you want me to go and get Tia? Asked Louisa. Yes, please. I also need to apologise for scaring her. I've been rather murderous all day because I'm just so scared that once Antonio gets his gift, he won't be allowed near me, said Mirabel. She did seem pretty scared. I don't know why though, said Louisa, standing up to go and get Peppa. Peppa took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Enter, came Mirabel's voice. Peppa entered the nursery. Sit down, please. We need to have a long overdue talk. I suppose so, muttered Peppa. First, I want it known that you and Felix allowed Abuela to make me responsible for raising Antonio, and 1 day a month is not enough for you to call yourself his mother. I understand the day he was born, you were in no condition to object to Abuela, but you had plenty of time to do so afterwards. I thought you had more of a spine than Julieta. So, after all that, you now wanting him to call you Mum and spend time with you, just to reject me, is not going to happen. You let me become his mother when you let your mother take that decision from you and said nothing against it. I will not allow my son to be taken from me when he gets his gift. And I'm more than prepared to deal with anyone who tries. I have no problem with you wanting to have a part of Antonio's life. But you lost the ability to be his mother. And for what happened today, I do apologise for scaring you. But I was already angry at the situation, and then my baby comes running to me, scared. You've raised 2 children. How would you have reacted? Asked Mirabel. Peppa could only nod. Her head hung low, and tears fell from her eyes. The thunderstorm became light rain outside. Tia, you all left me to raise myself. Thankfully, I found people to look up to and model myself after. But then you all allowed an infant to be raised by a child who had to grow up faster than most. I'm trying to undo some of the bullshit of Louisa's childhood, but I can't be the only voice against the status quo. I need us to come to an understanding here before changes can be made. But trying to take Antonio from me is not something I, the village, or he will allow. You all know what I'm capable of. I noticed this morning that all my utensils had been taken away right before Abuela started talking, meaning that she's planning to do this, said Mirabel. What can I do? Asked Peppa. Have my back. Be supportive. Tell me when you want to spend time with Antonio, and we can work something out, said Abuela. I'll try. Is Tonito asleep? Asked Peppa, looking at the little boy who had buried his face against Mirabel's chest. He fell asleep before you came in. That's partly why I'm not ranting right now, said Mirabel. Mira, where did this maturity come from? You're acting more like a 30-year-old than a 14-year-old, said Peppa. I'm 15, said Mirabel. Wait, what's the date today? Said Peppa. April 24th. I turned 15 last month. It's fine. I'm used to it being forgotten, muttered Mirabel. You're quins, started Peppa, hand over her mouth. Wouldn't have happened even if people remembered thanks to your mother, said Mirabel. How many have we forgotten? Asked Peppa. All of them, after my ceremony. The town remembers sometimes, but I'm surprised they never question Abuela, said Mirabel. Merda, Mira, I am so sorry, said Peppa. Just try to remember the next one, if you can. I'm not expecting you to, though, said Mirabel. Even your mother and father forgot? asked Peppa. Mirabel just nodded. Who did remember? Asked Peppa, a sinking feeling in her stomach. Louisa, Antonio, Josefina, the town seamstress, and Mariano, said Peppa. Said Mirabel. You don't seem bitter about it, said Peppa. I have bigger things to be angry about, muttered Mirabel. Peppa looked at the painting behind Mirabel. It was so realistic, it looked as though you could walk down the carpet to the dais holding the 4 large thrones, and a 5th smaller one next to them that clearly wasn't part of the original architecture. Mira, these paintings. I have never really looked closely at them. Why do the thrones have different carvings on them? And why is one smaller than the other 4? When the castle was built, it only had 4 thrones for 4 co-ruling kings and queens. The princess was unexpected, but loved just as much as her siblings. She was the Lyre. And then there was the High King, represented by the sword. The High Queen was the horn and bow. The second king broke the evil's power, so the broken wand was carved around his throne. The second queen could heal any wound with a drop of magic liquid, so the cordial was above her throne. That sounds like a wonderful and well thought out story, said Peppa. It's nothing compared to Tonito's favorite story. Which story is that? Asked Peppa. Mirabel got up and put Antonio on his bed and looked at the lion painting. The stone table. It's a lot like the story of Jesus, but it relates to the second king of the castle and the wand of magic. Antonio loves animals. I should have realized it was because he slept under a painting of such a majestic lion each night, said Peppa. Aslan. The lion's name is Aslan, said Mirabel. Peppa saw the fond look Mirabel had on her face when she said the name. It didn't seem like she was proud of the name she had made up. It was like she was recalling memories of a dear friend. It pained Peppa to think that her niece had been such a lonely child, that she needed to make up imaginary friends instead of playing with children her own age. The rain had stopped, but it was still cloudy out, and half the town was lodging in casita. Louisa was hiding in her room to avoid being bombarded with questions about how quickly she could rebuild various homes. She didn't want to disappoint anyone, but despite her gift, she was just one person. She hoped Mirabel had a plan. With just a month until Antonio's ceremony, Abuela was fretting that it might not go perfectly, and it had not been like Mirabel's ceremony. There was a line outside of Louisa's locked door, with Abuela at the front, knocking on it, trying to get the girl to come out and talk to the people. Louisa took out her copy of the Iliad and began to read, trying to lose herself in ancient Greece, instead of listening to those outside her door. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed this one. Oh boy, blowout. Oh, I really like that Mirabel's opening up though, and her conversation with Peppa was heartbreaking. Louisa better learn to find her footing soon. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Bye!